Yes.
I call the honourable member for Cowan.
My question is to the Minister for Immigration and Border Protection. Will the minister update the House on steps the government is taking to process the remaining 30,000 illegal maritime arrivals left unresolved by the former government?
I call the honourable Minister for Immigration and Border Protection.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Cowan for his question, because he'll be pleased to know also that, having just concluded the month of September, it was the 8th month out of 9 this year where there have been no illegal arrivals to Australia by boat. 8 out of 9 months, Madam Speaker. Now, the member for Watson couldn't manage 8 out of 9 days. Never could the member for O'Connor. But on this side of the House, with the policies we have put in place to stop the boats, Madam Speaker, the month of September has passed and there has not been a single successful venture during that time. And that has now become the common result, Madam Speaker, under this government, not the exception. It is the expectation because of the measures that we have put in place. But that's not the only challenge we've had to deal with, Madam Speaker, because we have to deal with the 30,000 and more people who arrived illegally by boat, who were left behind here in Australia by the previous government, that they allowed to come, and more than 22,000 of them, Madam Speaker, they didn't even process at all. And that goes back to people who arrived as early as August of 2012. Now, the Labor Party's policy was to give them a tick-and-flick assessment process, give them a pathway to permanent welfare, Madam Speaker, for life through the provision of a permanent protection visa. Now, Madam Speaker, that is not our policy. That is not the policy we took to the election. We took to the election a policy, Madam Speaker, we have held for well over a decade, like all of our border protection policies, because on this side of the House we know what we believe when it comes to border protection, Madam Speaker. We are the ones who have the runs on the board. We are the ones who have the consistency approach to dealing with this problem. And so last week, Madam Speaker, we introduced into this place legislation that would see temporary protection visas back on the visa books of this country, Madam Speaker. That's what will happen as a result of this legislation hopefully being passed through the Senate. Now, that legislation also, Madam Speaker, does something important through those TPVs. They actually go further than the Howard government measures, which ensured there is no possibility of an application for a permanent protection visa under those arrangements. In addition, Madam Speaker, under these provisions we have introduced, we are claiming back for Australia how we decide who is a refugee and who is not. In this legislation, we enshrine in that law what it is to be a refugee, what protection involves and what protection does not involve. Now, I know those opposite in other places would like to see those decisions made in Brussels or wherever else, or Geneva. That will not be the case under this government, Madam Speaker, because, as the former Prime Minister John Howard said, we will decide, and we should decide, who comes to this country, Madam Speaker, and not allow the interpretations of others outside this place decide what our international obligations are. We will decide them, Madam Speaker, not those who sit in other places as those opposite would do. We're cleaning up Labor's mess, Madam Speaker, because that's what coalition governments do best.